The last unit in this week's module, Unit 4, we're going to be talking about how to add real value and not overcapitalize on the deals that we're working with. So next, I just want to talk about adding real value and not overcapitalizing on the renovation. And I've got some points here, so I'll just cover all the points first. So real value is perceived by others. Adding value is not always necessary, and sometimes the property is well maintained and tidy and already ready for sale. You don't want to bite off more than you can chew. You want to work towards your strength, and you want to work with a scope. So just to go over some of these points, you know, our job is to ensure we add as much real value perceived by other purchasers, all while spending as little as we can. We don't want to end up spending too much because it may be the case that it doesn't actually bring us a return. Other times it may be the case that the property is too much work and it may be better fit for another investor or property trader to take on, especially if you're starting out. And there's been multiple cases that, you know, although I could have made 50,000 on a property, I would have I much rather take just 15,000 or 20,000 and spend my time elsewhere and palm it to another investor that's ready and prepared to actually take on the big renovation project. Now, if you personally have an eye for beautiful renovations, you may want to work with a bigger project. But if you're a better people's person, which is what the business is about and what I'm better at doing, you're much better off just talking to another vendor and looking out for another deal where you can go off and spend your time closing that deal rather than working on the project yourself. So, you know, you want to work towards your strength, and if you're good at renovations, maybe that's something you can do. If you're not so good, maybe leave it for another person. And lastly, you want to work with a scope sheet that actually covers all the aspects of the property and decide which things are actually the most important to resolve and will get you the biggest return, and not focus on the small things. And having a scope basically keeps you focused so you don't stray away from going overboard on renovations, because often I see a lot of property traders or other investors that when they start to do up a property, even a property that they know they're going to be selling or a rental property they don't personally live in, they start to get personally and emotionally attached to the property and start adding too many special features as if they were going to live in the property themselves. And that's basically a very novice mistake, because you're going to start going through, or you're going to start burning all your money up by applying all these different things, having an awesome lampshade and having, you know, all these aesthetically pleasing things that isn't actually going to bring the value up. So you don't want to be doing that, and you want to work with an actual scope sheet. So on the screen right now, you can see a snippet of a checklist for your renovation. And this is the scope sheet that I personally use for the business myself, where when I'm walking through a property, I can basically tick yes or no on certain things that need replacing or need fixing, and I can write comments next to it as well. So it's a really handy tool, and it basically keeps me focused, and it doesn't distract me from starting, from going and kind of repairing everything in the whole house. And often, you know, I don't do everything for the house, and I only do the necessary parts, because when the end purchaser comes in, if they're a home buyer, they can actually finish up a few things themselves and add their own personal touch. Now, this is just a small snippet of the scope sheet. For the full scope sheet, you can actually download it in this week's downloadable section as the resources and materials, and I want you guys to actually print this out and apply it for every single property you go out to, and only do the necessary things that will actually bring you a return, off which you're going to be talking with the real estate agents and your power team to figure out what it is that you absolutely must need to repair and things that you can actually get away with. So personally for myself, guys, these are the main things I focus on any property I touch, and you know, I don't do anything more than this. Now, I will go over what I do on a property that needs a lot of renovation, but for most properties I come across, these are the main 5 things I go and do. That's painting the inside, outside as well if it is really bad. If it's not really bad, I just leave it and I do a water bath and roof chem wash, which is number 3. Number 2 is I carpet the property, which often hides any imperfections on the floor. For bathroom areas and kitchen areas, I normally put down vinyl. You don't want to put down tiles because they're more expensive. And number 4 is get cleaners, get professional cleaners to actually tidy everything, because that makes a massive difference, just having a clean property. Number 5 is changing small fixtures such as light bulbs, power switches, face covers and stuff like that, and that kind of gives the small details and creates a better feel overall for the property as well. The last thing you want to do is have, beautifully painted and everything, but the power switches and the covers and door handles are still rusted and they look absolutely terrible. So small things make a big difference. Now for bigger projects, this is what I do. I do the new kitchen and new bathroom, but again, the majority of properties that I come across, I mentioned I only do the very basics, and it should really kind of not cost you more than kind of 10 or 12 grand. And this one here, if the property or the project is a lot bigger, I try not to go overboard and I try not to spend more than kind of 30 odd thousand. And basically, again, what I'm going to be doing is the bare essentials, and these are the things that get me the best return on investment. And that's going over the painting, inside or outside again, carpeting as well, or refurbishing timber flooring if it's cheaper, having a new kitchen, new bathroom, and again, fixing the small fixtures, and lastly, ensuring the property is tidy and clean. So again, you guys don't go overboard, don't get emotionally attached to the property. It is a property that you're just going to be selling, and the main goal here is to ensure that every dollar we actually spend, we want to ensure that we're getting more than the dollar back. We want to be getting, $5 back. And these are the things that, from my experience, get the most money back. And, there's no point painting each wall a different color, or getting certain lampshades, or making sure that you've got the best tiles and stuff like that, or making sure your toilet is Germany made or anything like that, because you just want to make sure the new bathroom, the whole bathroom, is aesthetically pleasing as well as the kitchen, but you don't have to be so specific on each individual part of the kitchen or each individual part of the bathroom. Just ensure the whole property looks and feels at least tidy and clean. It's got a good flow to it, and then you're on to a winner. So guys, I'm also going to be including a budget tool that's going to help you with your renovation process as well, to really kind of keep you focused and not go over budget. And it's got all the numbers that you need and all the items that you need, and basically it's got the purchase price, it's got the registered valuation, both on different columns with GST inclusive and exclusive. It's got all the renovations that will most likely come about, and I've also put a buffer, which I find it really important to be conservative when you're doing the numbers and put in a buffer amount. Should you not hit that buffer amount, it just means more money in your back pocket. And we also cover other line items such as lawyer fees and real estate commissions, and another extra buffer as well for stuff like possibly staging the furniture and whatnot. So I've actually included this budget tool in this week's downloadable sections and this week's material. So I encourage you guys to actually use this and kind of use it in assistance to providing a forecast on the property, and really kind of stick to that budget so you don't go overboard. And that will actually help you figure out where your numbers are going to be in terms of your profit and what you expect to get the profit out for on the other end. So it's kind of just working backwards, and the more line items that you have, the better clarification you're going to have, and this budget tool allows you to do that because it's got all those items covered. So once you've been doing property trading as long as I have, even though I don't have a kind of tradesman background, I haven't done any building of any sort, or I don't have trade experience, you get good at it after doing it for such a long period. And I've just got this slide here saying you want to guesstimate like second nature. And of course, experience comes from doing it and doing a few deals, walking into a property and guesstimating the cost. It does slowly become like second nature. And I've never done any kind of physical labor on the building side or on my properties myself, other than one property where I decided to do the painting myself, which I think I mentioned in week 2. But other than that, I decided that doing the laborer side of thing, it wasn't my thing. I wasn't good at it. The painting job looked absolutely terrible, and it would have cost me a lot more money, because I did it myself rather than getting a professional. But once you guys, go out there and look at a lot of different properties and start renovating a few properties, you will start to guesstimate properties like second nature, and you'll very quickly be able to work out the numbers backwards. When you have a price in mind that you're willing to and prepared to pay for the property, you can already guesstimate what the renovations costs are going to be, and you can guesstimate what the numbers are going to be at the end when you're trying to sell it. So it's a very good skill to have, but to get this skill, this guesstimation skill like second nature, all comes down to practice and experience. So practice makes perfect, guys. So you'll hear me say this quite often, and I always say, you have to be working backwards. And a really good person to help you work backwards is actually utilizing your power team or utilizing the real estate agent, because the agent will actually assist you in regards to what they think needs to be done in particular to that property in that area. And they can even tell you what it would potentially sell for if you were to actually carry out the renovations. They know the area better. They can clarify whether or not what renovations you were thinking of were even necessary, and because they can give you an idea of what it would actually sell for, it can even give you an idea of whether or not you should even take on the deal, if the profit margin even is worthwhile or not. So you want to be working backwards, and you want to be leveraging again the time and skills of others, and using the real estate agent as a really good resource to help you work backwards and figure out where the value is going to be. So thank you everyone for reaching the end of week 3's lesson, where we've covered how to find and evaluate property deals. Now, this week's actionable steps is very practical based, and I want you guys to go out and review 30 different properties and obtain 30 certificates of titles. I want you guys to be completing the budget worksheet and draft a conditional offer for each property based on the information gathered. To help with this actionable step, guys, I've actually provided more examples of conditional and unconditional agreements in this week's downloadables, and there's a whole bunch of other material and resources that I've referred to in this week's lesson as well. This week's actionable step is all about practicing. Practicing makes perfect, and this will set the tone for week 4, where we cover structuring and settling the deal. It's going to be an awesome week next week, where we also cover a lot about the on-selling process as well. So you want to make sure that you really understand week 3 and you've actually completed the actionable steps in week 3. So thank you again, guys, for joining me on this lesson, and I look forward to seeing you guys on week 4. So thank you everyone for reaching the end of week 3's module, where we've gone over this week how to find and evaluate property deals. Now, this week's actionable steps is very practical based. It's very much about taking action and going out and actually applying what you've learned and doing it. So what I want you guys to do for this week's actionable steps is go out and actually review 20 different properties. Of the 20 properties, I want you guys to figure out which ones you can actually add value to. And you want to be asking real estate agents to figure out how much it would actually sell on the other end once value has been added to the property. And also you can use the real estate agents or your power team to figure out how much the renovation of the values is going to cost you. Of course, I want you to also be using the budgeting sheet to figure out the cost to add value. And based on the above, I want you to put down an offer that would result in a profit if you were to actually take on the deal and sell it. Now, of the properties where value can't be added, I want you to go and ask a few agents or your power team to work out what the realistic selling price would be, and I want you to draft a conditional offer with the purchase price where you can actually turn a profit on the other end. As discussed, money is made when you buy correctly. Lastly, I want you to make sure you keep a record of all your budget sheets and conditional offers for each property, because these offers can actually result in a live deal, an actual real life deal. So you want to be making sure you have kept everything, because it's something that you can look back on should the deal actually progress and the vendors decide to take on your offer. Now, this week's actionable step is very practical based, and it's all about practice. Practice does make perfect, and it will set the tone for next week's lesson, where we go over structuring and settling the deal. We've got a lot of interesting stuff to cover next week, and we'll also be talking a lot about zero money down deals and on-selling property deals, of which you have to be very, very good at writing up these offers. So that's why this week we're going to be reviewing 20 different properties and writing offers for all of those properties as well. I've also provided a ton of resources available on this week's downloadable section and materials, where you can actually go out and see examples of what unconditional offers look like and what conditional offers look like as well. And there's also other tools and resources in this week's lesson that will be able to help you out when you go out and apply the actionable steps for this week. So that's it, everyone, for this week's lesson, for this week's week 3's module. And I look forward to your success, and I look forward to seeing you guys in week 4's lesson. Thank you for now, and bye-bye.